Triggers for stress and depression. There's a lot of them in this process. I have people that even months later go, Tammy, why am I feeling this way? Why am I having this day where I'm crumbling? I was doing so good. I was doing better. And suddenly they feel like they're at square one and they just don't know what to do about it. Healing and recovery from this type of traumatic relationship with a narcissistic or high conflict person is not a straight line. It's not a straight line. There are good days, bad days, there are ups and downs. It's a form of grief, right? Which is a journey that most of you know I have been on since the loss of my late husband, Thomas, about 3 years ago. Okay, so it's not a straight line. It's difficult and there are triggers that happen. And I want to talk about a few of those and give you some of my thoughts on things that help me, at least, that I hope will be helpful to you. So before I dive into that, let me just remind you, if you like this content and you find it helpful, don't forget to hit like on this video. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, there is a link in the description that you can click to find out more about that. What are some of the triggers that happen? Okay. In the very beginning, what I always tell people is no face-to-face communication and no phone communication. Why? Because the sight of that person, the sound of their voice, any of those things are going to be a trigger for us at that stage because the breakup is fresh. It's new usually. And, there's been a lot of stress and conflict getting to that point. And so your body almost has a visceral reaction, right? That's almost like beyond your brain, beyond your logic, I'll say. And it's just sort of this visceral reaction that happens. It's interesting because I will have anniversary dates that come up around my late husband, and different dates affect me differently. And the interesting thing is it's not the same every year. Some years the anniversary of his death has been harder. Some years his birthday is harder. Some years our anniversary is harder. Some years Christmas is harder. And there's many times where even 2 to 3 weeks in advance of that date, I will start just feeling off. And I start thinking, why am I feeling this way? And logically, I don't know of any reason. Nothing's happened. I don't know why I feel this way. And then at some point, I'll look at a calendar, be aware of the date or something, and I'll go, oh. And I'll realize, because I've been on this grief journey now for 3 years. I went through a divorce about 20 years ago, which is also, like I said, a form of a grief journey. And I lost my mother suddenly about 12 years ago now. So I've been through enough experiences with grief where I kind of can recognize it a little bit easier. It still honestly creeps up on me at times. But when I stop and I think about it, most of the time I can kind of recognize, oh, that's probably what's going on. But I think in the very beginning, when you're on this kind of journey, you don't always recognize that that's what's happening. And, my late husband used to say, when you go to court, it takes about 72 hours to come down from that. So the trigger of the stress around that event is very strong. The trigger around any interaction with our ex is going to be very strong. And honestly, sometimes it can just be you being tired or you being hormonal or you being, you having some other stress in your life, finances or whatever the case may be, that then just sort of causes other things to tumble in for you. So that can happen as well. And I think one of the triggers that I see happen that people are it's kind of unexpected, I think, for a lot of people, and that is our children. And it's not that our children are triggers because they're struggling or their behavior is bad necessarily, they're misbehaving or whatever. I think those things can be stressful or whatnot. But I find for most people, it's when that child's behavior or words is reflective of negative things that your co-parent used to say to you. That is very triggering for most people, and it can make you feel like you're almost still in relationship with that person, with your ex, and it's coming in the doorway through your child, right? because your ex is using those words with your child. One of the things that my oldest son used to say to me a lot is I was controlling. That was a word he repeated to me a lot. That's a word his dad used to use with me all the time. And so understandably, that would get me pretty angry pretty quickly because it reminded me of that. Not necessarily because my son was upset with me, but just because it's like, it's infuriating. It's like your dad's putting these thoughts in your head, right? And I'm not saying that I can't be controlling at times. Just to hold a mirror up and be brutally honest, like I can be controlling at times. I think I'm much more mellow now than I was, 20 years ago when all this was happening. So, was I known to be controlling at times? Yeah. Yeah, I probably really was. But it's like there's something cruel in the people you love the most coming back at you with your kind of worst qualities, right? Or taking a quality that is maybe something that really makes you part of who you are that can have a downside. Any quality can have a downside if taken to the extreme, right? And they come back and they weaponize that and make you out to be a bad person. It's like part of your identity, right? My late husband used to say, we have these arguments and these conversations, and it's like you have the what happened, right? That's the surface conversation. And then you kind of have what it means. Okay. And that's like the next layer down. And then it gets into your identity, like how it affects who you are or how you see yourself. And my husband used to say, when you get to that third level, those are fighting words. Like you are attacking somebody at the core of who they are at that point. And so when your children come in and they are reflecting these words, and, sometimes that happens very, very young. I see kids that are 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're coming and they're using words, and the parents going, that's not a word that a 5-year-old uses. That's not a word that an 8-year-old uses. And that logically, but it's hard not to be emotionally triggered by that because that's being fed through your ex. What do we do about it? I think that with the kid issue in particular, what you have to do, like what I should have said, and I didn't say this because 20 years ago, I didn't know what I knew. When my son said, well, you're just controlling, I should have said, well, I'm your parent and, that may feel controlling to you sometimes, but I love you and I'm always trying to do the best for you. And then just change the subject. I'm not going to argue with you, right? I'm not going to engage in conflict. We're not going to have this big battle about it. I'm just going to acknowledge your feelings. I'm not going to gaslight you and say, well, that's not true. Your dad's putting that in your head. You're blah, 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 right? I mean, that's what's being done to him on the other end. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so I want to acknowledge how he's feeling. Or if they say something like, well, the other parent, if he had come and said, dad says you're controlling, I probably would have said, well, what do you think? Right? Like, let's start to have you differentiate and think for yourself. I want to validate their feelings, but I also want to maintain my authority as a parent to a certain point, right? Like, you don't get to speak to me that way. I'm sorry you feel that way, but you don't get to speak to me that way. And I love you and I have the very best of intentions. And then you just move on from it. And then you have to go behind closed doors and do the work on that issue yourself, right? It's not my child's fault that my ex used to call me controlling and that's a trigger for me, right? That's him being caught in the middle of mine and dad's perspectives on that issue. And so I don't want to put that on him. That's not his load to carry. That's an issue between me and his dad. I have to go and do the work and go, okay, well, what about this is true? What about this can I improve? What about this can I change? How can I be more aware of it? And really try to do that work or decide that I'm going to own it. Okay, I am controlling. It's part of my nature. It's part of what makes me good at certain aspects of what I do. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Like it is what it is as long as I'm not hurting anybody else, right? You really learning to look at your own self and to take that responsibility and to not be feeling like you owe your ex an explanation or that makes you a bad person. We don't care what they think anymore, right? So whatever they say, whatever they do, whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, you don't need to live in fear of that. If you're a good parent, you have a good bond with your kids, you're doing the best you can on the day to day, you don't need to live in fear of the other person. Okay. So this comes a lot through your own self-care, whatever that looks like for you. And I've done everything from meditation to journaling. I like to go lay by the pool in the summer on my days off, go to dinner or lunch with friends, go see live music, spend time out, things that nurture me, things that help me instead of sitting and focusing on what other people are saying or doing or whatever else. Other people's view or opinion is not where you need to focus. What matters is how you feel about yourself. And once you have the confidence in that, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you, right? Like, it goes back to our little kindergarten chant. And I know that that's, very basic on some level, but it's very, very true. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's like a list of things you learned in kindergarten that are like basically the rules for life, right? Like, be kind to others. There's this whole list of things. If you've never seen that, go out and Google it. I'm pretty sure it'll come up for you. And it's very true. So the best way to not be triggered is to just not care what they think. And in order to do that, you have to be okay with being you. As long as you're insecure about being you, what somebody else thinks is going to continue to matter to you. If you'd like help working on that, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's information on that page on my group coaching programs for moms and for dads. And there's information on my customized VIP one-on-one coaching services. Those are customized programs to fit your exact need and where you're at exactly in your case. Most of those clients are, either have domestic violence going on, they have custody evaluations, attorneys for the children, or they're just like at the very beginning, they're completely lost. They don't understand half of what's happening. They don't get answers from their attorneys. They feel just sort of like they're floating out there with no tether, and they need something to really ground them. And so if that's how you're feeling, I would encourage you to look at that VIP program. So I hope that helps. I will see you guys next time.